Well, and one thing that I learned recently is even if you have to record in an MP3, there is benefit to converting that to a wave or saving it as a wave because waves actually process faster when you're
you're not sitting there waiting for it to decompress.
Take forever.
Yeah. So another good program that I've been hearing about is MP3 Skype Recorder. MP3SkypeRecorder.com, I think. It only can let you maximum record as a 128 kbps MP3, which is okay for human vocals. It's all it will offer. And you can also, I think you can split the channel so you're incoming from Skype and you go into a different channel. Yeah. And then you can blend it together. It's really good if you can at least, you can correct yourself on your end a little bit more if you have more of an issue with audio quality on your sound, like background noise or whatever. But
and generally,
it does a decent job.
If you're going to do that, I would recommend, because you said it splits
it's free
them,
too.
You take the Skype recording, but then you use your actual microphone recording and just put those together. And
you'll end up blending them too, because that's what you want to do. But if you want to do quality filtering for individual people, especially if it's only you and one other person, that makes it way easier.
Oh, yeah.
Other thing, if you're on Skype, I figured this out.
Use the Ethernet port.
Don't be wireless if you can help it. Be hardlined. Also, have the person that has the best connection and the best overall sound quality record the show. I've had somebody record a podcast where I don't know what he was doing, his stuff sounded terrible all the time, and he was recording. As soon as somebody else started recording, even though they were doing it wirelessly, it sounded way better because Skype would only activate their channel when they spoke, so their background wasn't constantly there. So, like, if you have a call-in or if you have somebody coming in from a convention, have whoever's not at the convention actually recording, because the noise only comes in every once in a while, and it's overall better. That's what I've noticed with Skype.
With that Skype splitting software, have you thought about running that on both ends and then just emailing the file or something?
That is I would almost say the old school, as well as the probably most professional way to actually record, because you're actually recording everybody individually. You get the highest quality possible. And you can filter out each of your own selves and then recombine it. You're going to want to sync it at the beginning.
Clap at the beginning and the end.
Yep.
It sounds silly, but it's because what I'll do.
Well, that's what they do in movies. That's the clackers for.
It's because I help Anime 3000 make their podcasts, and we talk over Skype, but we each record our thing. We do the sync point at the beginning and the end, and then in Audition, I can just drag it, stretch it out just a hair, and then it's perfect. And then what I can do is add different filters and stuff to make, because he doesn't have a noise gate at his studio, so I can add a noise gate to get rid of the me that you're hearing. And that's, I don't know if we were going to talk about external gear or effects or anything.
I think I had a couple more things on while that's the highest way, the best way to record, you run into problems when you have guests, because I don't know how to do that. Also, having to, however long your show is, having to send and wait for large files, and
people that don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors to consider, and it can be just not worth it versus just to
always have a backup.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it as a backup easily, and it works fine that way. MP3 Skype Recorder makes it really easy if they don't know what they're doing. All they need to know is like, oh, that is my microphone when I select it, and boom, there you go. It's an easy, quick backup.
Mm-hmm. I've had people where they forget to select the mic that they're recording, and so they'll do the whole show out of their integrated laptop mic.
Oh, the laptop mic.
I've done that on accident on my show. Way, like the 7th episode I ever recorded. I was like really into the review. It was super great. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I used the laptop mic. This sounds awful.
Any questions before we move on about what we have so far? Okay. We have... what were you bringing up?
Oh, I mentioned like effects and stuff. There's kind of a... there's this one dude, Cliff Ravenscraft. He's like podcast answer man. He calls it his special sauce. So I have kind of my own little effects that I will process on everything. If you have the access to a hard limiter, that's really nice. What it'll do is it can boost the level, but then chop it off so it doesn't clip. Gets a nice even signal. If you know how to use a compressor, that'll also help even out the signal. If you know how to do high and low pass filters, that can help clean up some of the noise. I think that's
This might be over the heads
do.
for most of the people
I'm just
here.
saying, I'm just putting the words out
Yeah.
so they can look them up on their own.
Yeah, I mean, I've been using Goldwave forever. I don't know what most of the stuff really does unless I'm trying to make it sound weird. Then it's just me just sitting there practicing and what does Doppler effect do or whatever. Yeah. And all these crazy things. You just mess around and you also messing around figuring out with Skype especially. Macs, I can't help you. I don't know where the settings are. PCs, always go into your audio settings, uncheck automatically adjust my microphone settings because that just screws everything up.
Oh, you mean in Skype?
In Skype, yeah. When you're in Skype.
It's still under preferences.
Well, see, before, nobody could find it on a Mac. Nobody could find what I was looking for. It was like tools, options, call settings. Somebody actually had to use another program that basically hacked their Skype in order to adjust it. But also, it's like just get together with somebody and do a little back and forth for like a minute or so and try to figure out what are the sweet spot settings for you. If you're using Audacity after you record, I'm not sure if you can see it while you're recording, but after you record, you can see like the waveform. Yep. And if somebody's like, and then you're like that.
That's where all those effects I just blathered out come in handy.
Well, you don't need effects for that part, though.
Well, I'm saying if let's say your co-host records too low, we'll use the hard limiter to get it back up. Use the compressor to even it out. Use the EQ to kind of cut out some of the noise that you just made louder. So
I suppose you could do all that or just pull it into Levelator.
Essentially, that Levelator does what I just said, but it does it for people
We'll come back to Levelator. But it's like, my point is like, if you're doing that experiment, you're seeing all that.
Yep.
Depending on if you are recording, you either need to lower your incoming volume or your speaker volume, or they need to increase their mic. For you need to increase your mic for sure in that situation. So basically finding out what those sweet spots are. If Audacity can't, does Audacity show your waves right away?
Audition, I think you mean. Audacity will, Audition will. I think pretty much all DAWs.
Yeah,
should.
if you can see the wave while you're recording, you can figure that out while you're recording and figure out the sweet spots for the audio. Getting the sweet spots for both of everybody's like vocals and audios first will mean you have to do less stuff in post to make it sound right or better.
He keeps saying sweet spots. I'm gonna give you an exact thing for what a sweet spot is. You want to be kind of around -10, peaks around -6, because if you're too high and you get to 0, you're going to get clipping, and that's going to be digital distortion. You can always make it louder. You can't always make it quieter.
Yeah.
So try to have it around like -12, -10, no peaking no higher than 6, and you'll be fine. And just make it louder afterwards.
No, sorry. Since we're talking about sound editing programs, have you ever used a program called WavePad?
I've never
Not heard of it.
Oh, I use it. Of course, it's an Australian program. I had to purchase it, but I was just wondering if you may have used it and what your thoughts are.
I've only eventually purchased my Goldwave after pirating it for years because I love the program, and I've used it when it was just like a few window buttons, and now it's this full-blown program. I was like, you know what? I should drop the $50 on it. I love the program, and
So it's called
also
WavePad?
WavePad.
Yeah.
Okay.
WavePad sound editor.
I used to be really opinionated on this, and I've learned something more recently. It doesn't matter what DAW you're using, digital audio workstation, I think, because they all essentially do the same thing. Find one that you're comfortable with, because they're all going to have the red record button. They're all going to have things that you can clip stuff out. I used to be a snob and think, if you're not using Audition, you're not cool, but it doesn't matter.
Well, Audition does mean when you're saving it into MP3 because it does not use the lame. It uses it.
Yeah, well, yes.
It uses a better.
Yes.
It's the algorithms. When it comes in down to editing.
Though. There are workarounds. I think you can use iTunes to get the better algorithm. If you take a wave and like try to convert it to an MP3 through iTunes, that worked at one point. I've never tried it. It worked. Yeah. So let's see. I'm gonna look up WavePad.
So, yeah. I mean, it's like
it's from NCH.
I usually try to tell people use Audacity, and when I'm on my webcomics panel, I say use all these other programs that are cheaper and or free.
I don't want to
or
download it.
free from instead of trying to bootleg something, because if once you start trying to go more legitimate, honestly, you really should not be pirating at that point, and you shouldn't be pirating anyway. We do not condone the action of pirating software. But it's because you get used to the pirated program sort of thing. It's like, why would you get used to a program that you really should be paying for when you can get used to a free program or a really cheap program that does the job good enough or just as good? It's like there's no reason to it. And that's why I don't like to use Audacity, because I already know Goldwave and I'm comfortable and familiar with it. And there's no reason for me to use it anyway.
One thing that is nice, because even though, I've grown up and realized you can use whatever DAW you want, I still do like to promote Audition, and now you can rent it. Like, if you're a student, you can rent that for $20 a month. You could rent it for $50 if you're not a student, I think. Like, Adobe has made it easier for even the average Joe to use their software legitimately. You can rent Photoshop now. It's kind of cool. It's called the Adobe Creative Cloud.
We could debate on the whole renting software phenomenon, maybe on a podcast episode.
Maybe on a podcast.
But
right.
not here. I'm wondering if there's any other sort of... there is also... let me bring up my webpage. There is, if you're having trouble trying to connect your whatever you're using for your audio recording and your program, somebody had pointed me to a website called Virtual Audio Cable.
Oh.
It's a pay program, but basically it makes you go right into your systems, and as though you're using virtual cables to say, yes, definitely plug Skype into this program and this. It basically, if you were really having trouble and trying to get all your, because it's like if you got Windows trying to figure out fighting over your audio settings, you got Skype fighting over your audio settings, so you got my external stuff fighting over audio settings. I would give it a look. Virtual Audio Cable, that'll take you to the site. Or you should search for it. It's right there. I have somebody that swears by it. A friend of mine, Ben Carver, who does Animation Aficionados, swears by it. And he's a big tech nerd. So, but any questions? Any questions thus far? Yes.
You mentioned reselling hardware that you're not, if you upgrade on the, where are good sources to resell microphones, things like that, or acquire them in the first place?
Craigslist, Amazon.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
Music schools, high schools. I mean, if you got an old guitar amp, go to a high school. There's definitely going to be somebody that will buy your old amp for $50. Like, it's something like audio professionals swear by this. They straight up tell us in school, do not buy new. Don't do it. Unless it's a computer or software, buy it used. Just because a lot of this stuff it's hard to screw it up,
Especially since there's no moving parts these days.
You could probably set this microphone on fire and it'll still work. Like, I'm not kidding, well, maybe not the 48, but the 58, that thing, the reason it's so popular is because it's indestructible.
Yeah, this one's all dented up and stuff, but it still
sounds fine.
Yeah. You mentioned fire.
Plus, you can fix a lot of this stuff too.
There's this Japanese movie called Wild Zero. It stars Guitar Wolf, and I saw them live in Minneapolis last year for third anniversary with my girlfriend. We went to go see Guitar Wolf, and it was awesome. And I got on stage for fucking out loud. It was great. The movie is like the awesomest mic ever. It's like this mic on a stand. He's like, just rocking out. And while he's yelling and singing into it, there's like flames shooting out of the back of the mic. And it's awesome. And I want one.
Not sure how the frequency response would be on a flaming mic.
I don't freaking care.
Wireless, for sure.
In your living room, on a podcast, just shooting flames everywhere?
Yeah, I would do it, and I would film that shit.
Just don't show it to
I would find excuses to use that microphone. Oh man, if politicians had that power,
Oh God, they don't need that power.
it might be more entertaining.
We have about 15 minutes.
Question?
Okay. You mentioned earlier about the sound files. What is the highest quality sound file you can record in?
Oh boy.
Wave would be the highest that you would record in, or an AAC or whatever.
The highest quality, I think, right now is
That you would practically record.
that you would practically record in. Yeah, probably. For a podcast, I wouldn't recommend going any higher than 48K, 24-bit, and even that's too high. 44 1K, 16-bit wave file should get the job done.
Default.
You can go up to 192 if your software can handle it.
There's no reason to do anything like
32-bit
that
float.
unless you're trying to record live music or something that's... If you're just recording human vocals for like 98% of your show, there's no reason to go higher than the defaults. And that's the thing
Well,
with...
know what the...
default wave.
Default are.
Default
know what
wave.
the numbers mean, because because sometimes the default will not be what you need it to be. I don't know. Like I remember when I was starting, I had no idea what those numbers were, and I was, oh boy, I would get myself into
So
trouble.
what were the numbers you'd say?
The numbers I would recommend is sample rate 44 1K or 44100, I think, and 16-bit for the bit depth. And that should get the job done if you're doing vocals. If you're going to record music, 48K with 24 bits generally what a lot of people like to use.
Yeah. And then and if you are recording whatever your software is, you're recording it as an MP3, highest possible MP3 Skype recorder only does 128, so record in 128. After you're done with all of that recording of the podcast, you have that one file, convert it into a wave, save that wave, and you'll use that as your editing platform for splicing in music or breaks or sound effects or bumps, things like that. Do all your editing in wave because it's a lot easier than waiting for your program to recompress, decompress, and all this other crap, because an MP3 is basically a compressed wave file.
Yep.
And then when you're all said and done with it, and I skipped a few steps, but I want to get back to when you're all said and done with it, your show is 98% vocals, aside from maybe an intro music, outro music, maybe a song in the middle. 96 kbps is all you really need. And I have like an intro music, outro music that's like 20, 30 seconds, and then I'll have like maybe a 3-minute song during one of the breaks, and it sounds fine. Even the song sounds fine, but the auto vocals, you don't really need more than 96. And what do you save yourself?
I use 64K, and I've found that it actually doesn't really affect anything. We it's because it's voice, and it gives a nice small file size. We'll do like a 2-hour show, and it won't even be above 50 megabytes. It's like usually 30 megabytes or something.
Wow.
And yeah, we don't really play any music, and even if we did, I mean, it sounds like AM radio.
I save a 96, and an hour show is about an hour show is 40 megabytes.
Yeah. Well, we started doing longer and longer shows. I mean, we did 3-hour shows, and I don't feel comfortable putting out 100 megabyte files anymore because it's ridiculous.
No,
I download a lot of podcasts over 3G.
There was an episode of Animation Aficionados. They would save at 128. And they had a 2-hour show once, and
well, and there's other things that are.
And it was on my phone. It's like, why is this not?
There's other things that are going to affect your file size too. Like the sample rate is definitely going to affect it. If you're recording in God knows you shouldn't do this, but if you're going to record in like 192K, your file size is going to be enormous.
Yeah. And then that goes into what allotment you have for whatever your hosting is, or just the amount of space and the size, and then just how long people have to wait to download the whole thing if they're listening live. Or if nobody's going to want to download on their phone, on their data plan, if you have a super huge file all the time.
I think Anime World Order, I want to say they do the 64K, but then they cut the sample rate in half from what I use, and that gets their show down to like 15 megabytes sometimes. It's there's a lot you can do, and I mean the human voice does not need that wide of a frequency range to be intelligible. That's different from intelligent. That's a different story, but intelligible, to understand it.
But if you have a lot of noise you just can't get rid of, don't go lower than 96, because then you'll get that.
That's from the lame encoder, though.
Well, that's what a lot of people are going
And that's also the noise filters. If you don't know how to
do it,
if you don't tweak them, you can end up with a lot of artifacts. I still don't know how to use a noise filter that well.
I figured out how if you try your best to save audio that you have, and you have this noise, it's really hard. But every time you try to do that sampling, or even in the embedded stuff, because usually the default stuff is always way too harsh, and you get this really terrible artifacty or the watery, soundy sort of stuff. Find the silentest part you can with the general background noise. Reduce the volume of that by at least 50%. That way, it's not as a harsh filter, but I found it works very well.
Yeah. Well, if you use a noise gate too.
This is all after the fact. If you have no other way to do it.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, you can apply a noise gate in post.
Oh.
Because then it'll essentially do what you just said, but it'll only do it when they're not talking.
Okay.
So if you know how to tweak the settings, you can do a lot of cool things in post.
Yeah, trial and error. I've been podcasting for over 6 years, so
yeah.
Is there any good tutorials online or anything like that you could point at and say, hey, this is a really good how to edit your waveform and keep things up?
Like very detailed tutorials? I'm not sure.
I made one.
Oh, really?
I made one about leveling your podcast.
Yeah, leveling.
It's what is it called? It's
called Levelator, and you just drop it.
Yes, you can use a Levelator if you're a bitch. No, I'm kidding. No, Levelator actually works pretty well.
Yeah, it is amazing. We didn't mention it. It's like filter first, do all your edit. Don't add anything. Just you have your raw file, do your filter, then drag it into Levelator. You can look it up from the Conversation Network, Levelator. Yeah. You just pull a wave or an AAC file into it. It needs to be one of those two. It'll levelate it, output a separate file, and you can listen to it, and it brings the lows up, brings the highs down, and all this other fancy stuff, and it sounds pretty good for the most part.
Yeah, that's a good just drag and drop one. The thing with tutorials is it depends on what DAW you're using.
Yeah.
I use Audition. I could teach you how to do it all in Audition, but if you use Audacity, it's not necessarily going to work the same way.
Right.
If anybody wants to watch me edit this afterwards, you can watch, kind of see what I do. I'll try to go a little slower. Well, I've been hanging out in the Wi-Fi lounge mostly, so... I mean, the whole room couldn't watch, but
right. I got notes here that I can throw at you. I have another. I think I do have a podcasting crash course to podcasting episode somewhere, and I can link people to that. But it's pretty much the same stuff too. I'm not sure if
talked about a lot of the same things, but I mean, Kyle Aber was on there. So if you want to hear what Kyle thinks about podcasting,
this is essentially the basis. This will get you all started, and just naturally you'll refine yourselves over the years. More so if you seek out more like other tutorials, or if you just really spend some time and just screwing around with your program and see what happens and what works best, and investing in this and that, and there's plenty of options, but we can at least get you started, and I hope that we have not utterly confused some people or discouraged them from trying. So
there's a book that one of my professors swears by. I haven't read it yet, but he's a genius, and this is like his favorite book. It's called Total Recording, and according to him, that has everything you'll ever need to know. So it might not tell you how to edit your podcast, but it'll teach you about the tools, and then they're all in the programs, these same tools. So it'll teach you about like compression, sample rates, bit depth, microphones, frequencies, all that junk. So I don't know exactly who wrote it, but it's called Total Recording.
Yeah.
So
we talked a lot about a lot of the technical stuff, which is very important. Other things as far as like when you're doing a website, if you actually have a web space that you can load like a WordPress or something more custom. But I mean, always, if you know how to code, you don't need to listen to us for this, but you can load a WordPress, and there's a plugin. I use PowerPress plugin, which has been pretty good and has some built-in stats. So presently, it's not working with my website. I got to figure out what's going on with that. But
I know they had a what do you call it? A virus scare a while ago.
That was WordPress in general, though.
I meant PowerPress specifically.
Oh, really?
Yeah. One of the players had some security problem.
keep your WordPress site updated.
Yeah. And then your plugins and all that sort of stuff. And there's sort of like built-in things. I mean, and then of course, if you have a WordPress, you can always go beyond the defaults and spruce it up and all that sort of thing. But it's pretty good. And if you're on like Podbean or Libsyn, you can actually get the MP3 file that they have, the link. Usually you download this file, and if there's an MP3 link, you can take that MP3 link, pull it right into your WordPress site if you'd much rather people go to your nice site that you designed, and you want people to go here because you can put your own ads on it versus just the Libsyn
Yeah, I don't know if we mentioned that.
That
Libsyn
does work.
Libsyn literally is the, I don't care about learning how to do all the technical junk. They even give you your own website. They set everything up.
It's fairly basic, but there you go.
Yep.
You're ready to roll.
They'll say, put this in iTunes, it will work.
Yeah.
It's great. But it's not very customizable, so.
And then after that, you got to figure out how to market. And,
marketing.
Unless you just, you want to do your own fun thing.
Marketing
and whatever.
hard.
Advertise. Project Wonderful. Project Wonderful is probably what you want to use if you're just starting out, which...
you have to find people willing to pay you the penny a day, though.
I'm talking about you pay them to advertise.
Yeah. What I found works the best is making a promo and having someone else play it. I've tried a bunch of different things.
A little bump, a little advertisement, and then hopefully you can trade bumps with other people. And
30 to 60 seconds long. Exactly. Don't make it more than 60 seconds long or no one will play it.
Yeah. I usually go 20 to 30 seconds, but...
20 to 30 is fine. I know in advertising in radio, it's either 30 or 60. There's no in between. And that's just because of automation reasons. But, yeah.
Any other questions before we close out this panel? Anyone?
We got 4 minutes.
Anyone?
Will this be online?
Yep. Probably on both of our sites.
Yeah, well, as long as the audio and the video doesn't get screwed up.
Well, if your audio gets screwed up, I can give you mine.
Well, then I'd have to sync it.
Because in mine won't have you hitting the microphone. So I'm just saying, I don't want to be, sound biased.
No, I've done that before. But I've had this thing at a panel in Dallas. Somebody just recorded on their Android Nexus 7 partway through, but I had the gain wrong on here. I had it on low, and so everybody's incredibly quiet, and there's all this background noise. It's like, oh. And luckily he saved it with his recording through his tablet, and it sounded really good. So, it worked.
Yeah, that's the thing, is with audio gear, it's not necessarily the price. Does it sound good to you? If it sounds good, then use it. Who cares if it's your iPad or your iPhone? I mean, shit. The iPhone actually sounds pretty good.
I've had people call into the show through Skype on their phone, and it was really good quality. Yeah. So if it works, it works. I mean, you can't argue at that point.
What gear are you using there?
I'm using an H2 Zoom. I think there's like an H4 out and everything right now.
I gotta see what the hell it's called. It's a Roland RO5. It's the successor of the RO9, which a lot of people really dug. This is a cheaper version of that.
Go on Amazon.com, read the reviews.
About $200. I love it.
You could usually always ignore the 5 stars. You could probably ignore the 1 stars because those are people really angry.
It was broken.
Yeah. So
flames over when I was
look at the 3s, look at the 2s.
This waffle maker didn't make my pancakes right.
And sometimes they do bring up stuff, and a lot of times they have like the manufacturers come in and it's like, well, we're sorry about this, call our number and
find people that are using it. Ask them what they think. Yeah. Listen to samples. Like if you want to know how the RO5 sounds, I use it on my site. All of the panels I recorded with this. Some of them, depending on the room, will sound worse than others, but generally, if you're in a good room, it's going to sound okay.
Yeah, and mine is pretty decent. I haven't used it enough to really actually tell you how really good it is because I only really busted it out for conventions. Otherwise, I do record a review show called First Issue, and it's a video series. But I do use this for better audio quality, and I can get the mic closer to us. and as long as we remember to close the window and turn off the fish tank for a while, it's pretty good sounding quality in this here. Tinkle, 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 tinkle. Yeah. Or I had the fan on one time because it was hot, and it was like, oh.
I've released a lot of podcasts with the fan on. Eventually, you stop caring. Like, whatever. These people will. I had people listen to me eat cake once, so I don't give a fuck.
So.
Just step away for 5 minutes to go shave too.
Yep.
At least you didn't masturbate.
Well,
While eating.
Yet.
well,
so that is, we're going to end on a high note. So thank you for coming to our panel. Once again, this is going to be posted. I'm going to post a video on webcastbeacon.com at some point. But I have 4 videos to edit.
Lord.
So, but otherwise, Fightbait.
Fightbait. Well, I have cards if anybody wants to ask more detailed questions, or if you need any work done, I can help you make promos, podcast consulting, all that junk.
Yeah, and if you have any other extra questions, you can also email me too and type Anime Detour 2013 and know what you're talking about, and I'll help you with my limited time. But not every step of the way if you got like a question on something.
Oh, no.
Because I've had people ask me every step of the way. It's like, dude.
Here's the thing, though. If you want every step of the way, I'll do it, but you got to pay me.
Oh, yeah,
I will teach you everything I know.
Money.
But it's going to probably cost you.
Yeah. So thank you for coming to our panel, and it's getting that time. Have a great con.
Yay.